sympathies for the tragic passing of your mother-in-law. Our thoughts and prayers are with you.
Thank you.
I know it's a difficult time, and for Javier especially. I heard you say he's the only child, and again, words can't express, but our thoughts and prayers are with you.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that.
So having said that, then we'll move into staff reports. Mary Ellen, please.
Okay, so I wanted to give you all an update on where we are with our reopening. So as a reminder, we're doing a 4-phase plan. Phase 1 and 2 are complete. We're currently in phase 3, which is our limited service. We reopened all of our branches by the end of August. We met our targets for that. Chris is going to advance the slide deck so that you guys can see some of the safety precautions that we've taken into place at all of our locations. I just wanted you all to get a sense of what the branches look like now. So Chris, you can just click through the slides. So at all of our branches, we now have plexiglass barriers at all the service desks. We have new signage. We have greeter station outside the library or in the lobby to let patrons know of our new safety guidelines before they enter the buildings. We've consolidated our business services, so staff are actually doing the faxing, printing, and copying. We've increased the number of hand sanitizer stations throughout the buildings. We now have many laundry style hoppers to quarantine our materials for 96 hours. And we have a new setup down here at the main library that will help limit the traffic in the stacks and make better use of the atrium area to promote the collection. And we have a new service desk, which is on the screen now for checkout. I believe at one time that was the checkout desk. So what's old is new again. So as I said, all the locations are open now, and we met the reopening dates, and staff are all back full time to their full hours. And Sunday service resumed at the main library after Labor Day. Chris, could you go to the last slide? So that is my report on our reopening. I just wanted to share with you a beta report. We are working on some new ways to report and analyze our data. And this is a screenshot of a new report that we hope to start using in future board packets. We hope it'll be easier on the eye and allow you to more clearly understand how people are using the library. This report was created by Greg Burlingame, and he's going to be working on data analysis more. So we're going to try to strive to make more decisions based on our data. As is the case for everything this year, our numbers and our usage and everything is different. Our usage is down as a result of the physical closure. We're going to be looking at the data much more closely now that we reopened and see where we can make improvements. But just to give you a sense of where we are now, physical circulation of materials is down about 62%, in-person visits down about 66%, but on a positive note, the e-material circulation is up overall 17%. So that is where we are now, but we're going to keep our eye on this for the rest of the calendar year to see where we need to make tweaks. Does anyone have any questions?
These materials look really good.
Thanks, Edmund.
I agree.
Okay, so in your October packet, we'll be shifting to this new format. Okay, thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. Any comments or questions for Mary Ellen before we move to Chris? Okay, hearing none. Chris, if you would give your report, please.
A little bit of technical difficulties in the room here. So my financial report really is not just about August, it's more about the whole year to date so far. So as we look at revenue so far this year, and specifically looking at the general fund, we've actually collected about $14 million through this year, which is actually a little bit less than what we normally collect in an entire year for years prior to this year. which is really good. This year we do have a larger revenue budget because the levy passed. We were expecting about $4 million more, at about 19 million. Right now we're at 14, so we still have some more to earn. But we're in a pretty good spot. So if we look at September through December, what we're expecting about $4.5 million more to still come in, which is great. That'll put us really close to where the budget should be. The PLF is still, it's going to end up a little bit lower than we originally expected at the beginning of the year. It might actually end up a little bit higher than the revised estimates by the state in June. I think it seems like the state economy is a little bit better than what they might have projected in June, but it's probably a little too early to tell for sure. But the PLF right now, we're expecting to be about 100,000 or between 100 and $200,000 under budget on the PLF from the beginning of the year. But that's pretty good, all things considered. Property taxes, we actually, I think it was yesterday, so it's not reflected in all these that I have here. But we received the last of our second half payment for property taxes for this year. So for the Stark County portion, we are actually, it was within about $5,000 of where it should have been. So once we're still waiting for some money from the state for just homestead and rollback type things. But we should be somewhere within probably about $25,000 of what we expected on property tax. So that both tax sides look pretty good. Obviously the PLF is a little bit less than what we would want, but again, all things considered, we're sitting in a really good spot. The only other spot that is really affected by this would be patron fines and fees. As you know, we're seeing a lot less activity. We have a lot less people coming in, and you know, physical circulation is down a little bit. So printing and copying is down from where it's normally been. So we're expecting to be about $150,000 less on that. That also includes passports and different things like that that we won't have this year. So all in all, right now, we're in a really good spot at this point in the year. And by the end of the year, our estimates are expecting the total deficit to be between $300,000 and $400,000 less than what we had originally budgeted from the revenue perspective. Switching over to expenses, we're also in a good spot. So currently, year to date, we have spent in the general fund $7,864,000. That's 51% of the budget. The largest section is obviously payroll and benefits, of which we've spent 57% of the budget. And through the end of the year, right now, so the general fund budget for this year, after the adjustment in April, is $15.4 million. The current expectation is to be somewhere around 12 million by the end of the year if everything continues as is. We will probably have some more expenses later in the year as material purchasing and supply purchasing and things come up. We also have gotten all of our staffing back. I think Shannon's going to talk about that a little bit here later. But so the staffing expenses have started to pick up. But from the best I can tell right now, without a large swing in spending, we will be somewhere around the 12 million, probably a little bit higher range there. So again, everything looks good on both perspectives. And really that's not a whole lot different than any other year. Any questions on that piece? Okay. Next, I wanted to talk just quickly. So the audit for fiscal year 2019 is concluded. It actually finished today. I received all the final documents. You guys should have received an email. I think it was like around 2 o'clock, so you might not have had a chance to look at it yet. I would say from my own perspective, I thought it was a really good audit. We only had a handful of items, only 2 of which actually made it to what they call the management letter. The rest are agenda items, which are just a little note that the auditors send the organization. It's nothing that they found even material enough to say anything. And then the management letter, they don't even note anything in your actual audit. It's just a letter they send to management. The management letter is public record, but it has to be specifically requested. Anything above that, which they consider a significant finding, which we, to my knowledge, haven't had any in a very long time here, That's actually sitting just readily accessible on the Auditor of State's website. But we have 2 management letter comments, both fairly minor in my opinion. The first one had to do with, they both have to do with the financial reporting, not the actual finances, but the reporting of the finances. So the statements that we prepare for the state. One was a fund balance classification. So the Jackson Fund that we specifically set aside for the Jackson project, there's different ways that we have to classify money. It's restricted, unrestricted, committed. It just depends on who sets the restriction, whether it's the board. If you guys say that this money can only be spent on this item, if an external party, so say the state government or a donor, says that this money has to be spent on a specific item, or if nobody sets a restriction, it has to be classified different ways. And a portion of the money sitting in there should have been classified as restricted, but we had allocated it as committed. It was still really, it was still restricted to the same purpose, but it was just classified incorrectly. And then the other item was there was $49,242 that were improperly calculated. They were shown correctly on the report, but they were just put in the wrong spot. So really everything was adjusted. And again, in my opinion, that everything was great. And, you know, I rely on my staff to make sure that all the, you know, we process millions of dollars of transactions every day with myself and 3 staff members. So to have just a handful of issues that are all really small, I think says a lot about my staff. So I'm very grateful to have them, and they do a really good job. Yes, they do. They do. We actually joked about that with them. We said, you just have to find something, don't you? But again, it was a good audit. We enjoy our auditors, and we're looking forward to having them again next year. So that concludes my report, unless there's any questions.
Any
Yeah.
questions? for Bruce?
One question. I did review the management letter, and one of the things I think is a hallmark of this organization, at least for the past 8 years that I've been a board member, is the quality of our financials and our audits. To Chris or Steve, I don't have the expertise to understand the management letter. I read it. Any cause of concerns, any challenges or problems implementing both of the recommendations in the management letter?
Chris, I'll let you respond to that question with respect to the implementation.
Sure. So both of the changes, the recommendations were actually things that could be changed in the year. So we actually made adjustments.
Chris, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So both the recommendations were things that could be changed immediately in the document, in the financials themselves. So we went ahead and adjusted those. There was really nothing that needed to be implemented. What I think was taken from the recommendations is just to put a little bit of extra caution into mainly the restricted, committed, type balance classifications. So I went ahead and went over all of those and made sure that we're going to have a similar situation once we have a couple new funds coming up. So we already have the one to the capital projects fund for the Reimagine project, and then you'll see in your board packet there's a resolution for the coronavirus relief fund. So just making sure that those are classified correctly. And then again, the other issue was just related to a cash receipt balance that was improperly placed into the wrong spot. So both of those, in all reality, fall completely on me. And I'd say, no, there was no issue in implementing them, and it won't happen again.
I'll just, Edmund, I'll just add that they were what I would call they were classification matters, which are, you know, really just that, you know, no cause for any significant concern from my perspective.
And I put a ton of weight on that, Steve, as you know. And so would it be fair to say that in layman's terms, this would be another unqualified audit, like a clean audit for the library?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And congratulations to both the committee and to Chris and everybody involved. I mean, because we have a serious, very impressive trend going on, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
Well said. Well said. Thank you, Edmund. I want to add for the board's benefit that the Finance Committee elected to waive the closing conference this year. We generally have a closing conference with the auditors, just given the pandemic and given the fact that I talked with Chris and Chris shared with me what, our two management letter comments were. It just didn't seem like it was the best use of anyone's time. So hopefully the board is comfortable with that. All right. Any other questions for Chris? If not, we'll move on to the consent calendar. If you've all had an opportunity to review the items contained within the consent calendar, I would ask for a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Thank you. Building and Grounds Committee, do we have anything to report in Buildings and Ground Committee? I know we'll be going into executive session to discuss certain real estate matters, but.
I don't have anything.
Okay, Bob, thank you. Shanna, I believe you are handling the Human Resources Committee reports, the two matters contained within there.
Yeah. Yes.
Hi, Shanna.
Hi. A couple things that I just want to hit before I get to what's on the agenda, and that is reiterating a comment that I think both Mary Ellen and Chris made about the staffing situation and where we stand with that. And we are happy to say that we were able to bring all the staff back as we had planned throughout the course of August. And so as of the end of August, we are now transitioned into staff working their normal schedules and out of the space that we had been in over the course of the summer, trying to get people back on board and back to our full phase 3 reopening. And so that's good news. And in addition to that, everybody's been trained. So I don't know if we talked about this in any prior board meetings, but in order for a staff member to come back to work after being off, they had to go through a safe work protocols training. And so we did that with all of the staff and are now actually on our second phase of that, going back and checking in with staff on their safe work protocols and making adjustments as needed. The other thing that I wanted to mention that's current is that we're in the midst of open enrollment, and we have just put forward, our benefits options for staff, which are the same as they've always been. The only difference this year is obviously with rates. Rates change from year to year. And we were very pleased, given some of the things that we were hearing about where medical insurance increases might go with some of the things going on with the pandemic, to only really realize an average of a 4% increase to our medical insurance plans. And then that was distributed across the 3 plans that we offered based on the nature of those plans. And then across our other benefits, we really had no meaningful increase of any sort. So overall, it was about an average of a 4% increase to benefits. So just wanted to let you know that's kind of the space we're in right now, and we're getting ready to start our new year on October 1st. As far as what's on the agenda, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act policy and I think the associated resolution. Really, this is just good, kind of just getting our house in order here with respect to the new law that's in place regarding the emergency paid sick leave and the expanded FMLA leave. We, instead of altering our existing paid time off and leave policies that we have in place, we just created a separate policy, given that this is time bound, at least as far as today. And that it's only really relevant through the end of this year, but it helps, I think, explain how this act behaves and works with our other similar policies. So this is pretty standard fare. It basically just outlines that we are following and complying with the act. And then the second item is also, I would just say, getting our house in order. So over the course of the period, from March to the end of August, as you know, we put forward a lot of different options for staff and went through a series of memorandums of understanding with the bargaining unit that we also, for the most part, employed with our non-bargaining unit staff and gave them similar options. This other resolution just gets at bringing that current with our non-bargaining staff, as we had done with the bargaining unit as well. Chris, is there anything more that I should say about this that I may be missing this item B? Or does that cover?
No, I think it covers it.
Okay. So really, these are just, formalities just to kind of get things in place, nothing really unusual here. So, and that's all I have as far as an update, if you have any questions.
Is there any questions for Shanna? Hearing none, I'd ask for a motion to approve the Families First Coronavirus Response Act expanded FMLA leave and emergency paid sick leave policy resolution. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. Okay, the resolution passes. Secondly, we have the Stark County District Library non-bargaining unit staff policies and benefits during coronavirus pandemic resolution. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Pardon me? So moved. Yes, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. All right, the resolution passes. Thank you. Next on the agenda is a couple matters under the Finance and Audit Committee report. Chris, could you walk us through these, please?
Sure. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So the first item is creation and appropriation of the Coronavirus Relief Fund. We've briefed you guys a little bit on this before, but we've received a lot more information recently. So the CARES Act provided money to each state to split out amongst different state entities, and state libraries, Ohio Public Libraries are receiving $18.3 million in relief funds related to the coronavirus pandemic. And so the way this is being implemented is the state has worked with the state library, and each library system is allowed $25,000 per public library building to assist them in operating safely during COVID. The $25,000 does not have to be spent at each location. It's just how they're calculating your amount. So if we wanted to, we could spend $250,000 at any of our branches. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to spread it out amongst everything. But if we were going to spend everything, likely more will be spent at Maine by a proportion than everywhere else. But we're just kind of looking at it as a $250,000 bucket. One of the contingencies on receiving the funds is we have to have a special fund set aside here at the library to actually accept those funds and spend those funds out of. So this resolution is simply creating that fund. It's going to be Fund 231, the Coronavirus Relief Fund. And it's created for the purpose of depositing and spending those grant dollars. Again, the grant dollars can be spent, they're for anything purchased. I believe the date was March 27th through the end of the year, through December 31st. So we have some time to spend those. We've gone back and we're calculating how much we've already spent and what we can allocate towards it. And then we're going to look at what we can do to further upgrade our safety protocols. So this resolution creates the fund, and then it also appropriates the $250,000. So we have $25,000 going to supplies, $75,000 going to purchase and contracted services, and then $150,000 going to capital outlay. It is very likely that in our December board meeting, I will come back to you guys and ask to change those appropriations around, because I have no idea exactly where the money is going to be spent in that fund. This is just my best guess, but we're going to try to spend the full $250,000. Obviously within the spirit of the grant, but we don't want to leave funds on the table. So is there any questions about that? Steve, this will need to be a roll call vote.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions for Chris before I ask the motion to approve? Hearing no questions, I'd ask for a motion.
Bob moves. Sally seconds.
All right, thank you, Sally and Bob. It's a roll call vote. Robin?
Yes.
Edmund?
Yes.
Sally?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
And Steve, yes. Motion carries. Chris, what about the temporary referendum on table of charges?
Okay, so the next resolution, if the board recalls back in July, which was our last meeting, I think it was July, we passed a resolution that modified part of our table of charges regarding with copying and printing fees for patrons. That essentially it allowed any copy or print jobs that were under $3 for that fee to be waived until September 31st. That date is rapidly approaching us, and it has been recommended that we extend that, or we are recommending that we extend that date through December 31st. So this resolution, it actually doesn't modify the previous one, it just adds on, it does October 1st through December 31st. So just for some further information, so through the period we just had where we were offering the free copies, the total was 13,977 pages with a total job value of $2,096.55. So it's a very small number, and we think that the service is very important to the community. And again, the dollar that it costs us to offer that service with the current number of customers that we have is fairly insignificant. So we're recommending that we go ahead and continue this until December 31st.
Any concerns or about that or questions for Chris? No? Then I would ask for a motion to approve.
Sally second.
Thank you, Bob and Sally. All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Thank you. The resolution carries. Do we have any new business before we go to executive session? Having heard no new business, I would ask for a motion to go into executive session to discuss real estate matters.
Sally moves.
Have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. It's a roll call vote. Robin,
Yes.
Edmund,
Yes.
Sally,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
and Steve, yes. We are now in executive session. Thank you.